Hello, and thank you for joining us for another segment of Camera On with Authors Inside. Today, I have a very special guest. I'll be interviewing someone who's an educator, who does humanitarian efforts, who I believe is an amazing person, and he's just a wonder and amazing person to me. So you guys will get a chance to see for yourself. But before we get started, can you do me a favor? Can you hit the like button and subscribe so you can receive notification if you want more contents like this? So we're gonna get right to it. Can you please introduce yourself? How you doing?
I'm doing well. My name is Dr. Ryan Alaniz. I am a professor of sociology at Cal Poly,
Mhm.
State University, San Luis Obispo, and I also teach sometimes with Cuesta College at the California Men's Colony State Prison.
Okay. Now, Dr. Alaniz, so the first time that you were presented with going inside prison to teach inmates, criminals, what was your thoughts and feelings as it relates to that?
I had already spent a little bit of time working with people that are incarcerated previously with an organization called Get on the Bus. And it really appealed to me to continue my work with people that are incarcerated because I see them as some of the most marginalized folks in our society. A lot of my work has been done with disaster survivors, field laborers, orphans. Uh, and so here it was quite ironic that we had this institution, Cal Poly, of 22,000 students, which is the wealthiest and widest public university in California, and
Mm.
literally 5 miles away, 4 miles away, a fence line away is this state prison with 4,000 people incarcerated, mostly Black and brown folk, mostly very, very poor. And so it was this juxtaposition, this contradiction in our society. And Cal Poly has a motto of learn by doing. And our criminal justice students were graduating, never having visited the prison or having met somebody who has been incarcerated. And I said, that's not learn by doing. How can you become an attorney you haven't even met or learned anything from the inside? And so I both was excited to teach at Cuesta College, which I was able to teach sociology courses to people that were incarcerated, as well as create a brand new class that was made up of 8 Cal Poly students and 8 women that were incarcerated in the county jail and have them take the class together. So not only that, I found in my own experience, and say this at the very first part of the very first class that I teach, I used the James Bradford quote back from 1633. This minister in London, England, was walking past the gallows where 3 men had just been hung. And he said, "But for the grace of God go I." And that's how I feel about teaching in the prison. Had I grown up with the experiences of the men that I serve inside, if our roles were reversed, if they had lived my life, they would likely be the professor and I would be the one that was incarcerated. And so it felt like my privilege is also my responsibility to go back and serve in different capacities. And as an educator, it made sense for me to go in and teach classes.
That's thank you. Dr. Alaniz, I want to thank you personally for being my teacher and helping me get my sociology degree at Cuesta College. It just you helped. You was very vital in changing the way I think because today I see things from a way that I didn't see it before, and I give you some of that credit. And I just want to thank you for having a heart to a heart for people like me. And what does that heart comes from? Was it part of your upbringing? Because you willing to go inside prison and even your humanitarian efforts. El Salvador, Honduras, these places that you go, you risk your own life. You don't know what you're going to be faced. You face dangers around you, and you still, your heart and your passion stands out so strong. It made me want to be better.
Mhm.
So I kind of like want to know where does that come from?
That's very kind of you to say. Thank you. Uh, in brief, when I was 14, I had the opportunity to go down to Mexico to build houses outside of Tijuana and spend a week building cinder block houses. And in that process, I guess I was quite open and surprised by the situation in which I saw people living in, the dire poverty, which I had never experienced before. And again, it was that juxtaposition, it was that uncomfortableness in my soul, where here I am with everything that middle class, I had everything that I ever needed. And these kids had next to nothing, would play with just like a flat tire. That would be their toy that they would play with all day. And trying to figure out that why could these kids, why are they happier than I am when I am so much more materially wealthy than they are? And so that contradiction has really spurred not only my social justice efforts, but also my spirituality too, to really try and think through, well, maybe we've been taught the wrong message. Maybe capitalism teaching us to work, produce, consume, and the more we consume, the happier we'll be, is a load of BS. And I think that's in part why I became a sociologist, is because I believe that that's a load of BS, that happiness doesn't come from material possessions. And to see the material poverty, visiting garbage dumps where people are living in Nicaragua, or volunteering at the orphanage in Honduras, or doing my research on disasters with disaster survivors, all of that taught me about I received more because I was able to grow, I was able to interact with them, and I was able to build personal relationships than I think that I was able to provide as a volunteer. And so it's always been reciprocal. I've always been able, I always receive more than what I give. And so that spurs me forward to continue my volunteer work.
Okay, so that's what drives you, what you receive from it, and that allows you to give more because you receive even more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay, Dr. Alaniz, how is it like for you when you see someone that you taught out in society, someone you taught inside prison, out in society, and who's excelling?
I am and I don't know if this is correct or not, but I feel so proud that of them, to know that they have made mistakes in their life and that they've had the resilience, the grit, and the ability to bounce back from some of the very challenging uh, situations of living in prison or jail, bounce back out and become successful. I think some of the most resilient people in our society are people that have been incarcerated, especially those who have been incarcerated multiple times, because when you are incarcerated, you lose everything.
Yeah.
You lose your house, your living conditions, you lose your possessions, you lose maybe family members who reject you, and then you're bombarded by often people who aren't very healthy inside of prison or jail, teaching you unhealthy habits and behaviors. And then you got to get out with $100, $200 in your pocket and try to make it in a society that is already labeled you with a scarlet letter of F, of felon, and have put up barriers to employment, barriers to succeed. And yet, many, not many, a handful of my students have reached out and shared with me what they're doing. One besides you, who I'm extremely proud of, and all the work that you're doing, both personally and as a good citizen, but also with Authors Inside. I have a student finishing their bachelor's degree in sociology at CSU Bakersfield. I have another student who keeps in touch, who's an artist and works part-time, but is able to do their art part-time. And to see them living, and being able to come out of a very difficult situation, which is prison, and still have something inside of them, some seed, some belief in themselves, uh, and to be able to overcome the hurdles that we as a society put in front of these folks is absolutely incredible. And so anytime I see that, the recidivism rate, as you may know, is 85%. That's 4 out of 5 people who go in will come back, and get out will go back in. What we're failing, the criminal justice system is failing. A business couldn't survive with that kind of statistic. A nonprofit and any institution would close down, because that's a failure. That's a failure. So those who do, that 15%, I am just so happy for them, that they've had what it takes. And in fact, I believe that they're more resilient than I am, because I've not gone through such challenges. And so I have so much respect for them.
Yeah, I'm very humbled for you to look at people like me as resilient and, to put us in high regards. Authors Aside, one of our mission statement is the 2 H's and the 2 R: hope, healing, and reform, and reducing recidivism. I'm glad you brought recidivism up. What's your opinion on how we can help today's youth and how we can have safer communities?
Gandhi once said, start with the children. And so when I think about, no child is born a criminal or born with a criminal mind. It's through their socialization, it's through a lack of opportunity, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare. 1 out of every 5 children in the United States lives in poverty. A lack of food, and a lack of maybe positive mentors or positive family members in their life. All of these contribute to people moving into a direction that's not potentially very healthy, which is crime, or gang membership, or drugs. And drugs, what are drugs? Our war on drugs is really not even really a good war, because we should be having a war on the causes of why people take drugs. Drugs is a symptom, it's not a cause. People use drugs to cope with their situation, whether it's mental health, whether it's a lack of deep poverty, whether it's abuse. So if we can start addressing these root causes, then we're going to have a lot less people go into the system, and a lot more people who will be able to function in a healthy way in society.
Yeah, well said. I want to ask you. First of all, I want to thank you for being the amazing person you are, and like I said, man, the world and being. It's a privilege for me to be able to call you my friend, my teacher. And before we go, is there anything else you'd like to tell the youngsters or tell anyone in particular?
Um, that's a very good question. I think life is hard. It's hard for everybody. And we make decisions, and we have to stand by and take responsibility for our decisions. And no one is perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. But that doesn't make that doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a human being. And so recognizing that you have worth, um, that goes beyond your worst mistake, I think is really, really important. And there's always, hopefully, there's always hope. If you have the opportunity to find that one family member or that one teacher or that one coach who believes in you and supports you and uplifts you, stick on them like glue, and try to stay away from the bad influences that take away hope, that put you down or put you in situations that you don't feel really good about. I guess that would be my suggestion when I think about the kids that I know who have struggled in young adulthood.
Thank you, Dr. Alaniz. And the word that comes to mind is mentor. You're a good example, a good mentor. And like I say, I know if I have any big questions or that I need answers in my life, I would definitely give you a call or email you.
That'd be wonderful. I'm happy to, and I'd like to do the same if that's okay, because I could
Oh,
see you as a mentor as well.
thank you, Dr. Alaniz. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining us on Camera On. You're always welcome, and like, we appreciate you.
Absolutely, anytime.
Thank you, sir. Camera off.